Hey guys, welcome to Beyond the Surface with Caleb. I have a new microphone today, trying it out. Alright, so today's video I want to talk about feeling like an outsider. I know there's a lot of people that feel like an outsider. They feel like they just don't fit in. And I feel like there's a bunch of layers to that we're going to get into in this video. So before we do, let's ground ourselves so we can explore this together. So just focus on your breath. Don't try to control it. Don't try to force it. You can close your eyes if you need to or want to. And feel your toes. Feel the tension in your toes. Work your way up to your legs. Move around if you need to. And I like to start a lot of my videos like this, just getting grounded and getting centered. Because I don't only want to talk about intellectual, rational stuff. I feel like we need to feel safe and grounded before we get into that. Because this channel is all about integration, integrating your rational side of you and also your emotional side of you, among other sides as well. Okay, so feeling like an outsider. The way I'll start this video is kind of talking a little bit about myself. And after a couple minutes, I'll go into other things and how you can get a different perspective and something to think about. So I'm 34 years old. I grew up in a small town where there wasn't a lot of diversity, and half my family is white and half my family is black, and I didn't feel like I fit in from a young age. My family loves me, and they've given me tremendous support. But when it came to peers and, being a kid and wanting to fit in with your peer group, I had a difficult time with that. And it wasn't only a racial difference or a cultural difference, it was also a personality difference. I was more interested in learning why people did what they did. Why someone could say something and then contradict themselves. I remember in second grade learning multiplication tables and just wondering to myself, what's the purpose of this? Why are we learning this if the teacher doesn't even want to be here? I kind of felt like a fly on the wall. On one hand, I felt like the stuff that they were teaching me was important, but also I felt like there's something missing. And I wasn't really that into trying to fit in as much as other people were. I still had that desire of wanting to fit in, but I was more interested in, how do I fit in? Why do I need to fit in? What's the meaning of life? What is the meaning of friendship? What is the meaning of relationships? I was more on the introverted side. And I always felt like I had to ask why. Why are we doing this? Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to believe this? Why do I have to believe that? And one moment that I remember growing up was I was probably around 13 or 14 years old. And I was in the driveway at my grandmother's, and there was this little, it was a dirt driveway, and there was this mound, like anthills. And I was so fascinated by seeing the ants and how they interacted and worked in a cohesive, flowing pattern. Like they seemed like they were just cooperating and getting things done efficiently. And one thing that I started to wonder was, okay, so I'm like this giant looking at this little anthill. I wonder how the ants perceive me. And I started like contemplating that and looking into that. And then I started to wonder, what if the roles were reversed and I was that ant, but I was the same size that I was, but in comparison there'd be something in relative size difference to me as if I was the ant. Like if I was smaller, even though I was still a human size as a kid, but there was something bigger than me that walked around and talked and carried itself a certain way and did all these things that a human does. I was like, I found that fascinating. And I've had moments of that throughout my life where I would just start to look at something, start to wonder, start to look at it more deeper, like, why? Like, why? What is the meaning behind this, and how could it be perceived from different perspectives? And like I had one family member that I had two family members. They looked at a similar situation or the same situation totally differently. And it fascinated me and confused me because a lot of people would look at a situation and say it's objective. This is just what is. One person's wrong, one person's right. But for me, at a very young age, I was looking at, okay, two family members have a different perspective on the same situation. What's causing that? What is it about their word choice, body language, openness, life experience that is causing this? And I thought that was just a normal thing to do when you were, even before like a teenager. I thought that was common. And so when I would talk about this with my peers, they would look at me and just with confusion, or just like, what are you talking about? And so, of course, that caused a lot of doubt within me, and I felt like I felt like an outsider. So, to still get my social needs met, I interacted more with people that were older than me, sometimes 2 to 3 times older than me. And I felt like I resonated with them more on an intellectual and emotional level. And to me, I felt like, because I was just a kid, like I felt like that's normal. And it wasn't until I got older, like in my mid-teens, that I started to reflect on that more and realized more and more from talking to people that that's not common. But for me, that's all that I knew. And so I really wanted to make this video because regardless of what age you are and what gender you are and what ethnicity you are and what identity you have from a social construct standpoint, there's still validity in it because you still feel the emotion. And that's one of the big things with this channel, is that I want to give a perspective that bridges things that are very spiritual and things that are very just thinking and rational, and have it integrated, all those different domains of the emotional, the cognitive, and the spiritual. And at the same time, I'm not your guru, and I'm just giving a perspective, and I'm not here to fix you. But I'm here just to give my perspective. Growing up, I used to, and I mean, I still do, I am interested in people's perspective. Doesn't mean I always agree with it. There's some perspectives I've heard that I thought were just wrong. But I still feel like there's some valid things to learn from it. And so that kind of sets up the video. So now I want to talk about if you feel like an outsider, do you have niche interests that the average person wouldn't think was interesting, or would think is weird or dumb? Do you have ways of looking at situations that seem unconventional? Are you comfortable in silence? Are you comfortable with not having small talk, but still seeing the validity of it? Are you comfortable with things that seem to come natural to you, but to other people, they really struggle with it? Have people called you weird, strange, confusing, dumb, naive? Do you feel like no matter, you learn this self-help stuff from different people and different resources, but you feel like it's just not working for you? Are you dealing with the struggle of seeing a lot in terms of human behavior and looking beyond the small talk conversations and seeing the social roles and seeing the social norms, and just not wanting to play that game? If any of those things resonate with you, you're probably an outsider from a conventional standpoint. Doesn't make you better or worse, it just might be what is. So what do you do with that? Because maybe you still have insecurities and you still see the paradox of having these social norms, having to still be a part of that game, those social games, because you have bills to pay and people to take care of and people to care for and ways to contribute to your society and to the globe and to your fellow humans. So how do you deal with that paradox while also feeling like an outsider? When you have ways that you want to communicate or ideas that you have that aren't shared with the mainstream, that are still healthy and still respect people's boundaries, but they're just out of the box. How do you deal with that? So a big thing on this channel is that I don't have all the answers. a lot of this stuff I'm trying to figure out myself. There may be things that I say or things that I've experienced in my life so far that I may have a better understanding about than you may have. There's things that you've had in your life and experiences that you've had that you probably better understand than I do. And that's a big reason why I made this channel. I can't talk about this stuff in normal everyday conversations. It's just not productive. It's just not. And so, in a way, after watching, when you clicked on this video, you might have thought, oh, he's going to give me bullet points on what I need to do to not feel like an outsider, because I'm sick of feeling like an outsider. But I think, and I feel what's more important is accepting how you feel right now as you're watching this video. If there's any anger, sadness, happiness, relief, feeling less alone, feeling more alone, to let yourself feel it, accept that it's there. Don't try to change it, just accept that it's there. How does it feel in your body? Does me even saying that sound woo-woo and out there and very irrational? If it does, listen to that. And one thing that I would suggest is, if you feel like what I'm saying is irrational and woo-woo, I would challenge that. I would softly challenge that. Has what you've been doing so far been working? Are you open to trying something different? Is it possible that that thought pattern that you've had about it being woo-woo and out there, to feel in your body, to have a meditative experience, is it possible that that might be what you need? It may not be what you need right now. It may not be what you ever need. But maybe it is. One of the things that I've noticed that has helped with me with feeling like an outsider, and from the Myers-Briggs personality test, I resonate strongly with an INFJ, which is considered rare. And when I first started learning about Myers-Briggs and figuring out what my type was to better understand myself, first I did it from when I first started learning about it, I was like trying to build up this feeling of competence and feeling of validation. I wanted to feel like the best. I wanted to feel like I'm rare, I'm uncommon, I'm special, I'm unique. I'm better than this person, I'm better than that person. That's how I wanted to feel in the beginning. That's what a lot of people who get into self-help, that's where they're at, is they feel like they don't belong. They feel like they're not worth anything or worth very little. They have a hard time setting boundaries. They have a hard time finding their worth and seeing their worth. People give them compliments and they still have a hard time accepting it. So a lot of times when people are going through those struggles, whether it's also influenced by financial or relational or physical pain or emotional or psychological, a lot of people that are dealing with those struggles are drawn towards self-help. They're drawn towards spirituality. And that can be a danger, because the self-help industry is there because they need people that feel like they can't do it on their own. They need people to think that they can't think for themselves. They need people to be followers. And that's what the big self-help industry is about. If you listen to people that are really into self-help, they talk about wanting to help people so much. But they're doing it out of a way that is, so it's a paradox. It feels like a contradiction, and you might have noticed it too, is that you have someone that, or you have a group of people, or you have an industry that wants to help people so much, and they want people to learn stuff on their own. And there's a lot of value in that. But they're also selling courses, and they're selling books, and they're doing all this stuff. And I don't have a problem with that, because it's a business and you have to grow your business. The thing that I do have an issue with, which is my own personal opinion, is to see people struggling, offer them help, and then say, you need to watch this course, you need to buy this, you need to buy that. And then you also have to keep on doing that. You're the average of the 5 people you spend your most time around. You want to be the best. You want to compete against all the others. How are you special? How are they lacking? And the really big focus on self-help is to be looking around and always worried about your competition, that you get burned out and you don't realize what you have to bring to the table because you're so focused on what everyone else is doing. Now that's a very simple way of saying it, but it's more complex than that. Because I, too, am teaching self-help. And we're in an American society, capitalism and innovation and progress and achievements and hitting goals, relatively speaking, that's important. That's how you build a society. That's how you keep a society going. That's how you put food on the table. That's how you share resources to help people grow. So I'm not against it. And I'm also looking at it as like there's things about it that are destructive and actually hurting a lot of people. And as me feeling like an outsider, it's like, and maybe as you feeling like an outsider, it might feel like, well, if we got rid of all that, if we got rid of capitalism, and if we got rid of greed and poverty and homelessness and violence and unequal rights and all this stuff, that the world would be a great place. Now let's say that that perspective is true. Let's just say, hypothetically, that it is true, that the world would be a better place. And this is going to sound controversial, but just doing social activism and political correctness and canceling people and doing all this stuff, it's not hitting the root of the problem. And there's a lot of conflict with that now, with the political correctness and people getting canceled, and greed, and dealing with all these different economical issues, social economical issues of homelessness and violence and poverty and all this stuff. So I can't say that people that identify with postmodern and are your stereotypical hippie, love and light, that they're 100% or 100% wrong. I can't say that the people that are identified with we need goals and metrics and measurements and rationality and structure and achievement, I can't say they're 100% right or 100% wrong. The people that are identified with a religion, like a very, very black and white thinking of like what the Bible says is ultimately true. There's people that believe that too. I can't say that's 100% right or 100% wrong. I can't even say my perspective is 100% right or 100% wrong. Because we're in this world. Before I say this, I am not saying all this to say that I've always thought this way. There was moments in my life where I was really against religion, that I was really against achievement, that I was really against postmodern, stereotypical, hippie, love and light stuff. There was moments in my life there was phases in my life where I did have that ick feeling. And in some aspects I still do. But I'm working on like owning it and seeing like where my blind spots are. Because there's still validity in religion. Before we had science that we have now in 2026 in America, we had religion that had as much influence, if not more, than science does now. There was validity in it. There still is. There's people that need that sense of community. They need a shared sense of something to believe in. There's family values that were born out of that. And science, we still need innovation and growth, and we need to have a metric, even though you could also say, if you're postmodern, that it's still all relative and all truths are valid. And you could still be like, we still need that aspects of that love and light and that world-centric of like a global, regardless of race and age and gender and all that stuff. We still need that. And we still have people that are rapists and terrorists and homeless and greedy and abusive. And we can't just cancel all of them out. We can't cancel out conservatives. We can't cancel out liberals. We can't cancel out in between. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that total anarchy or anything like that. What I'm saying is that we need to figure out how to have our systems of government, our prison systems, all the different systems, even down to like how jobs work and how those are structured. We need to change the systems. And the only thing I can do is just give a different perspective. And it's so complex on how to change these systems that one person can't do it alone. And there's people out there that feel similar, and they can feel like an outsider. Where do you fit in when you don't fully resonate with religion or science or spirituality, but you see a lot of validity in all of it? Where do you fit in when you see that people that do unspeakable things are still human and still need compassion, but they also need to have boundaries set and consequences enforced? And that it's not an easy black and white simple answer. And even to have all that intellectually, how do you integrate that in your nervous system? Because it goes against so many things. How do you do that? How do I, as half black and half white, intellectually knowing that you can learn a little bit from every perspective, and then have to look into Nazis and how their system was formed and how that can relate to how other systems and ideologies are formed? From an evolutionary standpoint, that goes against my ancestors. If you're looking at it from an evolutionary lens and a cultural lens. And even saying that, it brings anxiety within me. So how do you deal with that paradox, that gap? It's not easy. So let's take a pause a little bit and do a body scan. Move around if you need to. And focus on your breath. Oh, this chair is a little uncomfortable. All right. So with these videos and how I take those pauses, that's part of how I'm learning to integrate things. Because there is challenges. And to go through those things is not easy, and most people don't want to do it. And to be honest, I don't even want to do it. But it was brought into my awareness when I had a deep meditation and I was more aware of my inner workings and my thoughts, my defense mechanisms, and why I do what I do, and the routines that I have, and all this different stuff. So now I have no choice but to integrate it. And so, to get back to the topic of if you feel like an outsider, you may have looked towards Eckhart Tolle. You may have looked towards Wayne Dyer. You may have looked towards Byron Katie, Gary Weber, or Weber, as well, trying to find an answer to all this. You may have looked at developmental models, Ken Wilber, Actualize.org, Unthink Me. I have looked towards Tony Robbins, Gary Vaynerchuk, looking for the answer that'll solve it all. You may even have gone through a phase where you started to doubt these different people that I mentioned, started to criticize them, started to dislike them. From my perspective, in my opinion, I think there's validity in all of them that I just listed and many more. They all have something important and insight that can help. But none of them have the ultimate answer. And even I, myself, don't have the ultimate answer. Because what works for me and all the other people that I just listed, it may not work for you. And some of the things that the way that they teach and the way that the actions that they take, they don't 100% resonate with me. And that's fine. But I still learn from them. I've still learned a lot from them. I've learned a lot about myself. And ultimately, it's not about them and it's not about me when you're watching these videos or their videos. It's about you. What works for you? What works for your situation? Maybe there's things that Eckhart Tolle says that you shouldn't listen to. Maybe there's things that Actualize.org says that you shouldn't listen to. Maybe there's things that Tony Robbins says that you shouldn't listen to. I can't make that decision or make that bulletin list for you. You have to figure it out depending on your upbringing, the challenges that you face, and the way your mind works. Because I could say, you may feel like an outsider. You may be, maybe the way your mind is wired, maybe you have one of these rare Myers-Briggs type personalities. Maybe you see things more complexly than your peers. Maybe you are really intelligent. Maybe you have multiple different intelligences that you're still trying to figure out. Because there's not just cognitive intelligence. There's also musical, kinesthetic, emotional, spiritual, cognitive. And there's even a book by, I believe his name was Howard Gardner, about the multiple intelligence, the 11 intelligences. And there's probably even more than 11. And it's like a graph with a character of like a video game where you have these different attributes. You're good at some stuff, you're not so good at other things. And you can apply that across the different intelligences that make you human. So if you feel like an outsider, if a lot of the stuff that I've talked about has resonated with you, then maybe you should look into those different avenues, different teachers, different ways of being. Because not only do you have a spiritual side of you. You also have an emotional, psychological, and physical body. And it's complex. Now, how do I deal with all this? Kind of just to bring it back on me, in a sense. I struggle with it at times. There's many times that I see situations and people and how they're behaving and the word choices they use and their sentence structure. All the way from people that are homeless to people that are millionaires and billionaires. I find it fascinating on how they make meaning, how they choose the concepts that they choose, how they handle the struggles and challenges that they handle and they're encountered with. To me, that fascinates me. And also, too, I see it as like hide and seek. As like, on one hand, you need language. You need to make distinctions in the world. This is a cup. This is a plant. This is a specific type of plant. This is a type of cup. This is a coffee mug. Oh, this is a workout blender bottle. You need to make distinctions. And on the other hand, I have meditative moments multiple times throughout the day where my internal dialogue just shuts off. I can still think, but there's not a self-referencing as much. So I can still function in the world, still pay my bills, still play chess, still read, still learn stuff. But I get freedom from that internal dialogue of for the lack of language, for the concept of ego having to make a meaning out of everything. I get to have a break from that. So that's how I deal with that paradox and multiple paradoxes. And you may hear that and think, I don't know, might think it's crazy, might think it's interesting, might think it's fascinating. But oftentimes when people have that experience of what they call a spiritual awakening, a non-dual experience, a satori, oftentimes people have that when they're dealing with the most stressful, traumatic, on the verge of ending it all moments. And it's just out of the grace of something that you're able to break free. And then there's other people, they could just be walking down the street, hear something, listen to music, or just their mind connects different things and they have the same experience. So you don't need to have suffering. You don't need to not have suffering. That's the another paradox. And so you can't, explain something to somebody or show somebody something or try to have someone understand something if they're not ready to understand it. So there will be people that watch my videos and think, nope, this person's nuts. This person's a cult leader because they're talking about psychology and spirituality and self-help. That sounds like Scientology. Nope, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to associate with this person. Does that make me feel a little hurt inside? On a human level, yes. I feel pain. But on a deeper level, it's just what is. Not everybody's ready to hear different things, and that's fine. It's still painful at times. Just speaking for myself, it's still painful at times. But in the deepest sense, it's fine. And so this video was about feeling like an outsider, and I'm really interested to hear you guys' comments down below and perspectives and what you took from it, and I guess I just want to end with a suggestion to think about. Is oftentimes many of us think of like kids and how they develop and grow within the different grades of learning new things that build on top of each other. And I just suggest that, what if there's a possibility that it goes all through your life? What if it doesn't just stop when you're 18? What about if it continues? I wonder if there's something there. I feel like there is. But what do you think? Alright. Thank you for watching, guys, and I had fun with this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.